This is the most disturbing thing that has ever happened to me. Just to give you some background information, I'm a 22-year-old male, and this happened last year at Thanksgiving. I started dating this girl named Kate. We met at some bar, and after a week or two of dating, she became really excited for me to go to her parents' house for Thanksgiving. Personally, I didn't want to go, but I agreed to not look like a moron. It was a 30-minute drive from the city center. When we got there, I noticed that their house was surrounded by a huge forest. It was completely isolated. Their house looked really old. It was very old-fashioned too. We got out of the car and her two parents greeted us at the main gate. Kate's dad did all the talking. He was a tall guy. Big gray beard and wore glasses. He was somewhat skinny. He seemed really excited to see me. Her mom was very quiet, and just had this very obviously fake smile. They were both old. Possibly late 40s or early 50s. When we got inside, I noticed that there were many animal heads hanged in the living room's wall. Most of them looked fake, so I didn't really pay much attention to it. Kate's mom went to the kitchen to prepare the turkey, while her dad stayed with us and made some conversation. I was getting uncomfortable. Him and Kate just kept talking and laughing about weird subjects. I didn't really understand at the time, so I just pretended to laugh when they did. Eventually, dinner was ready. I sat next to Kate. It was a big table, enough to comfortably fit 10 people. Kate's parents sat together too. However, I noticed there was an extra chair. I curiously asked why it was there. Kate's dad very quickly told me it was for Kate's brother, who was upstairs. We started eating the turkey while talking about stuff. I don't remember exactly what we talked about, but I was quiet for the most part. I started hearing someone running down the stairs, almost like if they were on a hurry. Not even 5 seconds later, I saw a man rapidly sit in the extra chair. I was confused at first. This guy looked to be around 30 years old. He had a backwards cap and a weird chain around his neck. Kate and her entire family started giggling and laughing. It was getting creepy now. I didn't know what to say or who this new man was, so I asked if this is Kate's brother. Kate's dad confirmed it was. Now that her brother was here, I was getting even more comfortable. The four of them were just talking and making jokes. I didn't really say anything, just went along with the conversation and laughed when they did. We finished dinner at around 9 o'clock, and that's when everything took a turn for the worse. Kate's dad told us to go to the guest bedroom and go to bed. I was in shock. This man was telling a grown adult to go to bed at 9 as if I was a child. For some reason Kate smiled and told him that we'd be in bed very soon. What the fuck was going on? While her dad went back to the kitchen to talk his wife, I whispered to Kate. I was asking her what was wrong with her dad. She told me he liked going to bed early to get up early. I didn't want to her dad mad, so I just agreed and went to bed. We turned off the lights at around 15 past 9. Obviously I wasn't able to get any sleep. I was probably in there for 4 hours, desperately trying to fall asleep, when suddenly, at 1 a.m., I heard Kate slowly, very slowly, get up and leave the room. She was obviously trying to not wake me up. I didn't know what to do, so I pretended to be asleep. I heard her go downstairs. Suddenly, I started hearing her very quietly whisper something to someone. What the fuck? I thought everyone was asleep. I got up, and slowly walked to the bedroom's door. I put my ear on the door to try and hear what they were saying. I very clearly heard Kate's dad and Kate's brother quietly talking with her. Her dad said something about throwing the trash in the bin. Her brother kept insisting on mutilating the trash. It sounded like a family of crazy people. I was there for like 5 minutes, trying to listen to every little detail, when I heard Kate say how she was gonna get me now. I froze. I swear I then heard her dad say something about stabbing the trash. Her brother started laughing excitingly. He was trying to keep it in to not wake me up. The most disturbing part was when Kate asked where to stab the trash. Her dad said to stab it in the back so it lost consciousness. That's when I put two and two together and figured what they were planning to do. The trash was a metaphor of me. They were trying to fucking murder me and possibly torture me. I started shaking looking for an escape route. I noticed the window in the room I was in. It was pitch black outside, but I didn't care. I opened the window within seconds, while I heard someone walk up the stairs. Without even doubting it, I jumped out of the window to one of the bushes. When I was out of the house, the adrenaline started kicking in, which helped me get to my car. Thank God I had the keys in my right pocket. I opened the door and got in. I locked the doors and just before driving away, I saw the main door open and Kate's dad and brother both running towards me. I went full speed and got out of there in seconds. I was so fucking scared and shocked. When I thought I was pretty far away from the house, I stopped for a moment to read the 20 fucking messages my girlfriend had sent me. They were utterly disturbing. I had a knot in my stomach for some hours after reading these. Kate was talking about how she and her family were gonna torture me, get my organs out, eat them, and then kill me and dump my body in a river. She said I was very lucky to make it out of there intact. I didn't bother replying. I blocked her account and called the police when I got home. The next day, they informed me that Kate's parents' house was empty, and that no one was currently living there. I moved out of the city that same day, and never went back there. All I can say is, I am glad I didn't fall asleep that night. When this happened, I was 13. My family and I went to my uncle's for Thanksgiving. We did this every year. We'd normally play some board games, watch a movie and of course, have a nice dinner. This time was different. It was a very rainy night. Just before dinner was ready, we heard someone knock at the door. My uncle got up and went to see who was outside through the peephole. He didn't see anything. It was pitch black, like if someone was covering it. Getting skeptical, he asked if anybody was there. No answer. This is when I started getting anxious. My uncle decided to ignore it as he thought it was probably some children playing a prank on us. Nothing else happened for a couple of minutes, until we heard the knock again. This time I actually jumped out of my sit. My uncle got up again and went to the door. He looked through the peephole and again saw nothing but blackness. My cousins and parents started panicking. My uncle whispered for us to turn off the lights. When we did, he pulled up one of the window shutters to see who was outside. My uncle swears he saw a dark figure standing on our stoop. It looked like a tall man wearing a hoodie. We knew this wasn't a childish prank anymore. My mom quickly called the cops while sobbing in horror. I didn't know what to do. The man knocked again at the door. He obviously knew we were home. My uncle asked one last time who was out there. Again, no answer. This time my uncle told me to stay there while he went to the garage to get one of his golf clubs in case this man tried to do anything. When the man knocked again, this time a louder knock, I was paralyzed. I was worrying about what this man's intentions were. My curiosity took over me, and I decided to see who was out there through the peephole. At first, I didn't see anything, but after a few seconds, I realized what I was looking at. It was another man's eye. I screamed like I never did before while running upstairs. For a moment, I thought we were all going to die, especially when the man started knocking on the door again, even louder this time. Suddenly, I heard my uncle charge towards the main door while screaming to the man that he had a shotgun. It seemed legitimate. I guess whoever was out there thought so too, because I started hearing someone very rapidly run away outside. I looked through the upstairs window, and I indeed saw a hooded man run away. What a relief. When the police arrived, we explained what happened. Unfortunately, they never found the man. We never went back to my uncle's house after that. but I will never be able to thank him enough for what he did that night. This happened when I was 8. I remember that my parents and I always went to Grandma's house for Thanksgiving. This year was no exception. I was always excited to go to Grandma's house. She had everything a child would want: candy, toys, movies, and a huge turkey for dinner. It was great. Grandma's is only like 20 minutes away on car, so it was unlikely something bad would ever happen. Unfortunately for us, it did. I was in the car with my parents going to Grandma's. I was an only child, so I always sat at the back while my parents sat in front. My dad would always drive. I remember it was dark, like pitch black dark. I could hardly make out the forest from the car window. Suddenly, I heard my dad whisper something to my mom. I couldn't make out what he said. I kind of ignored it until they started raising their voice. My dad slowly stopped the car. I was confused. I asked Mom what happened. Before she could even speak, I knew we were in a bad situation because I could see the look on her face. She looked so scared and anxious. She told me there was a man in the highway and that we needed to wait for him to leave. Now, this was weird because the highway would always be empty, since we lived in the more rural part of the country. I curiously tried to see who was out there through the main window. My dad stopped me before I could get to the main sits. I was getting annoyed now, but at the same time worried. I wasn't a stupid child. I could tell something bad was about to happen because my dad looked anxious too. I asked again what was happening, but this time neither of them responded. They just looked straight through the glass to whoever was out there. Suddenly, I heard something bump the back of the car, and in that same moment, my dad went full speed and drove off. I tried to see what was happening through the back window, but by then, we were very far away. When we got to Grandma's, I went to watch a movie before dinner. After some minutes, I noticed my parents talking to a policeman. There were other policemen outside too. I couldn't hear what they were saying, so I tried to dismiss it. Before going to bed, I asked my parents what happened that night, but they just told me there was a bad man doing bad stuff in the highway. It wasn't until 10 years later, when my dad and mom told me what really happened that night. Apparently, there was a man with a mask in the middle of the highway, dissecting a human body. My parents were shocked, which is why they stopped the car. Only a few moments later, the man turned around and waved them hello. It was horrifying seeing a masked man waving at you while dissecting a corpse. My dad said he drove away at full speed after he saw another masked man approaching us through the rearview mirror. He bumped our car with what looked like a bat just before my dad could drive away. This was truly a horrifying experience. We never went back to Grandma's through the highway again. Instead we took the long route. I hope no one has to see what my parents saw that night.